you, Amanda. I'm so happy to be talking about this topic today. As Amanda mentioned, I'm our Community Initiatives Manager at San Diego Humane Society, and I currently oversee a few of our intake diversion efforts, including our supported self-rehoming program. Okay, so starting with our Native American land acknowledgement, San Diego Humane Society acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded ancestral homelands of the Kumeyaay, Degeno, and Payam Luiseño peoples. We honor the rich history, ongoing presence, and contributions of the diverse and vibrant Indigenous communities who make their home here today. Through our work, we commit to honoring their sovereignty, celebrating their enduring relationship with this land, and being good stewards of the land and the animals who inhabit it. A bit about San Diego Humane Society. We were founded in 1880. We are a private shelter with animal services contracts for 13 cities in the county, and that includes the city of San Diego. For reference, the population of San Diego County is about 3.3 million people, with about 1.4 million people in the city of San Diego alone. It's a very sprawling county, and we do have 5 campuses and care for more than 40,000 animals each year. That includes both domestic and wildlife. Of our companion animal intakes, about 20,000 of them are strays, and about 10,000 are owner surrenders each year. San Diego Humane Society has maintained zero euthanasia of healthy and treatable companion animals since 2002. And we have really robust community programming and try to approach keeping families together and keeping pets out of the shelter from every angle. So what is supported self-rehoming? It provides pet owners with resources, connections, and assistance to rehome their own pet without that animal having to enter the shelter. It can be ideal for people who have a little bit of time to rehome, but that's certainly not a hard and fast rule. We've seen folks successfully rehome with very little time. And I always like to point out that self-rehoming is not a new concept. People have been doing this for a really long time. I think animal welfare has been more intentional about our efforts to assist with rehoming over the past 4 or 5 years since the pandemic, but people have been doing it on their own before us. And self-rehoming decentralizes the shelter as the default place for pets who need a new home. At San Diego Humane Society, we started working with Rehome by Adopt-A-Pet around 2016, 2017. But we incorporated home-to-home and more support in 2022. And according to our rehome and home-to-home data, we've had 3,477 successful outcomes in that time, meaning that the owner was able to successfully rehome or keep their pet. And what are some benefits of self-rehoming? Oh, sorry about that. While we try to do everything we can to make an animal shelter stay as comfortable as possible, we know that shelters are inherently stressful for animals. And when we can move them from one comfy couch to another, it will be less stressful for them and better for their overall health and behavior. Here at San Diego Humane Society, we're currently scheduling our owner relinquishments for dogs, especially a couple of months out. So if we were able to support people with rehoming their pets privately, we would be able to schedule sooner owner relinquishment appointments for pets who just can't wait. If we have less pets in the shelter, it will lead to improved staff morale, less compassion fatigue, and better care for the animals who are there. We hold that owners can give more accurate information about the pet than we can observe in a shelter setting. They likely will have experienced that pet not only in a home environment, but maybe with other animals or kids, whereas oftentimes we're just taking a best guess at how the pet might behave in a shelter setting. Supported self-rehoming offers a sense of agency for the owner and adopter. Sometimes people who are needing to rehome are going through a crisis situation. And so giving them the sense of agency and being able to help select who their pet goes to can certainly be trauma informed. And then lastly, supported self-rehoming is community building. It's people helping people. And ideally, best case scenario, the original and the new owners can stay in touch, as they often do. Moving on to some common misconceptions about self-rehoming, starting with the big one that we might hear the most, which is concerns around people not asking for rehoming fees. So research has consistently shown that there isn't a difference between the quality of care or retention for fee-waived adoptions, and that adopters certainly don't value these pets less. And we hold that quality conversations are more meaningful than charging a fee. The bait dog myth continues to be pervasive in animal welfare, but it's largely unfounded. Dogfighting experts maintain that dogfighters never use bait dogs, and they're certainly not scooping them up in a public setting. And I haven't heard the pets being used in lab experiments myth as often lately, but I would imagine that falls in the same vein as bait dogs, and that it's mostly unfounded. As far as backyard breeders, one of the rehoming sites that we'll be discussing today, Home to Home, doesn't allow community members to charge a rehoming fee. But overall, we think it's a better use of our time to set people up for success when they're looking at adopting. So sharing, what to look out for, what questions to ask, and then overall just being more discerning. We have heard concerns over no spay, neuter, or vaccination requirement for pets being rehomed. But what we know is that most pets aren't acquired at a shelter or a rescue, and that the majority of people, about 74%, support spay and neuter. So once again, our time could be better spent making sure that these services are accessible. And lastly, community members will make bad decisions about who to rehome their pet to. We believe that owners know their pets best and can relay accurate information to potential adopters and make that perfect match. So don't get me wrong, there are people who harm animals through neglect, hoarding, abandonment, and abuse, but the data consistently shows that they are very much in the minority. Generally, people want to do right by their pets, and if they didn't, they probably wouldn't be trying to rehome them in the first place. By perpetuating these narratives, we're only contributing to community mistrust and isolation and scaring the public into not wanting to rehome on their own. Instead, we should focus our energy on moving towards connection and providing people support to feel confident in rehoming. Moving into some of the rehoming options, and I'll start with two of the most popular ones that many of us are probably already using or have heard of. The first being Home to Home. Home to Home is a rehoming site that allows posting for all legal animals. And in addition to people who are looking for a permanent new home for their pet, it also allows people to post who are looking for a foster home. They do not charge a listing fee for the rehoming owner. The site is moderated by shelter representatives, so that could either be a shelter staff member or a volunteer. Currently, we use staff members, but we have used volunteers in the past, and that was also very successful. And it offers the ability to message with owners directly through the site and offer support, which I'll be getting into more on the following slides. Recently, they launched their new home package option for adopters, and that includes a vet exam, 30 days of pet insurance, and training. I believe the fee is $25, but they will waive that if somebody is experiencing financial hardship, as they don't want that to be a barrier to people adopting from the site. And then there is a fee to use the site for partner shelters, and it is sliding scale depending on the size of the shelter. Moving on to Rehome by Adopt-A-Pet. I think I saw an Adopt-A-Pet representative in the call today, so please feel free to chime in if I'm misquoting anything. But Rehome allows for posting for dogs and cats only, and it offers the adoption option only. The rehoming owner is charged a listing fee that is based on the pet type and age, with younger, more adoptable pets being a little bit higher of a fee, and then older or less adoptable pets being lower of a fee. And that listing fee can be heavily reduced with a coupon code provided by the partner shelter. The owner can set their own rehoming fee up to a certain amount, and then the site is moderated by rehome staff. And I should add too that home-to-home staff are secondary moderators on the site, and if a post goes unapproved for a few days, then they'll step in and review the post to make sure that people are getting timely support. Moving on to a few other rehoming options. Rehome with Love is a different kind of rehoming site that provides support with different cost options. So they'll assist with pet profile writing and promotion, screening adopters, and even facilitating adoptions. And they also have a no-cost option. Outside of the sites, oftentimes people will start with their own personal network, so reaching out to family or friends to see if they can take the pet in, and then branching out to coworkers, neighbors, people they meet at church or the dog park. And then I've even had people successfully rehome via yard signage. So putting a sign in their yard that they're looking to rehome their pet with a nice little photo and biography about them. Community forums are also a great place to post. Nextdoor, Facebook groups. I've seen people rehome on Reddit, of course, Craigslist, and even community bulletin boards in their housing complex. A quick note about Facebook groups. I've heard of other shelters starting their own rehoming group. Here in San Diego, we had a few that existed when we were looking at launching our rehoming program, so we opted not to go that route. But that certainly could be an option with either staff or volunteers moderating the group if one doesn't already exist for your area. And then lastly, I just put a note to get creative. We've heard of people rehoming in the most unexpected places. I talked to a gal who was able to rehome to the owner of her poke shop because he knew her and her dog. So you just never know, and we just want to cast as wide of a net as possible. So how does rehoming look like at San Diego Humane Society? So currently, our intake scripting offers community members the opportunity to connect with our case management team, which is 2 of our staff members, myself and another team member, and we can discuss solutions to help them keep their pet or discuss self-rehoming options. And I will say oftentimes we're talking about both. As I mentioned, our owner relinquishment appointments are scheduling 2 to 3 months out for dogs. So we can be working on all of the things while someone's waiting for an appointment. And oftentimes we are. Our team can be reached via phone or email, and our contact information is listed on our website. And then how do we offer support for people who are rehoming? We'll assist with biography writing, photo taking tips. So things like photographing the pet in nice, natural, bright light with an uncluttered background, ideally making eye contact, and just showing their cute, quirky personalities. We'll guide them on where to post, so all of the resources that we discussed on the previous slide, what questions to ask of potential adopters, and then honestly, the biggest and probably most important thing that we do is just general confidence building and encouragement. Sometimes people will come to us with the notion that maybe they're not qualified to rehome their pet and that they should leave it to animal services providers. We'll get more into that in the coming slides about rehoming cyberbullies. So we just want to be there to let them know that they can do this, and we'll be there to support them through the process. We send a templated email to all of our rehoming owners with our resources, so they have them to review on their own time. And then we don't really have the capacity at this time to follow up with each owner every couple weeks or every couple months, as that would really be best practice, but we do strive to keep the conversation open-ended. So we let them know that we're here to support them, answer any questions they have, and to please reach out to us for support if there's anything else we can do. And I didn't include it on here, but our disclaimer that we post on all of our home-to-home posts includes a note that we will provide free spay-neuter for any pets who are rehomed through the site. We'll also cover vaccinations and microchipping at San Diego Humane Society. They'll just need to email us with proof that the pet has been adopted through one of those sites. And we do have quite a few people taking advantage of that. And then I included this sign on here. This was taken at one of our intake desks. It's just an example of resources that we can offer to help people keep their pets so they don't have to rehome them. And these are conversations that we're having all the time. So basic behavior counseling, resources for medical care, assistance with free supplies and food, going over pet inclusive housing options or assistance animal letters. We are a military city, so we get a lot of folks who are PCSing or deploying and might need temporary foster care or help with rehoming. We do have a safety net foster program that offers up to 90 days of free foster care for people going through a period of instability so they don't have to rehome, or if they're dealing with the issue of too many pets or need spay and neuter. So we want to let them know that we're here. We're happy to talk through all of these things and take the time to connect them with those resources. I want to say a year or two into the program, we created this list of template responses. So we noticed that there's common themes that come up when you're having these conversations. And one great part about Home to Home is that they require the rehoming owner to list or to check off the reason for rehoming. So that gives us some great intel and conversation opener that we can have with people. So we cover a lot on here. This isn't an exhaustive list, but we cover everything from if the person needs behavior and training tips to help with medical issues, our community pet pantry info, and then even just more basic information about how they could zhuzh up their rehoming post. So if the pictures are a little bit lacking, or we could add some more meat to the bio, we have those templates as well with some kind of prompting questions about information that we could add that we know are important to potential adopters. If you don't have something like this, I would highly recommend taking the time. It's a really invaluable resource. And one note I wanted to add is that even though Home to Home has the functionality to message owners through the site, we'll often just give them a call if they're open to it and talk through some of these things on the phone. And that just offers a more meaningful connection sometimes than sending messages back and forth, sometimes over several days. So we really do our best to promote both sides of rehoming. So both for people who are needing to rehome and for people who are looking at adopting. We have 2 different pages on our website. I would say this is the very first step if you don't have a rehoming program to get those pages set up, get your account set up, and then get the iframes embedded on your website. Like I said, we have our Give Up a Pet page and our Pets Being Rehome pages. We also have stand-up signs at our campuses, like the one you see on the right here. That one is at one of our intake desks, and it has a QR code to all of our rehoming resources. We also have similar ones at our campus exit doors, and those are to our Pets Being Rehome pages. So if somebody doesn't find who they're looking for in our shelter, they can check those out as a next option. We do weekly social media posts on Facebook and Instagram for pets being rehomed and resources for owners who need to rehome. We'll also share success stories and testimonials from people who have rehomed through the sites, although we want to get better about that, and that's on the goal list for this year. We created half-sheet flyers. So those are promoting the sites for people who need to rehome and for adopters, and I have samples of those on the next page. And then lastly, our shelter directory handout, which lists all of the shelters and rescues in the area, also includes the rehoming sites. So if somebody visits a campus and they're working with one of our adoptions counselors, they don't find who they're looking for, the adoptions counselors can mention the rehoming sites before they head out. Here's some samples of our marketing efforts. The first one is a rehoming post that was on Instagram. It talks about rehoming resources for people who are facing that decision. The second one was a success story from a community member named Melissa, who rehomed her Aussie doodle named Avery through Home to Home. And then on the right, we have just snippets of our flyers. They're half sheet, they're double-sided in English and Spanish, and we have a few different versions that we use to take out to events or have at our campuses to hand to people. And they once again have the QR codes to the corresponding resources. I included a couple slides on here about communication skills for relationship building, just because, sorry, I just noticed something in the chat. Maybe the slides aren't big enough. Oh, I'm so sorry. If there's anything I can do, please let me know.
Lauren, they're looking normal to me. I think it might be individual settings.
Okay.
Allison put some good tips in the chat for anyone who is having trouble seeing them, but we will also share out the slides with the recording. But they are looking normal on my end. So I think you can
Okay, I'm
keep going.
sorry about that if they're not coming up okay, but yeah, happy to share them after.
Awesome.
So yeah, the conversations that we're having can be sensitive. So I think just really honing in on and building those communication skills is key, because oftentimes we're having to garner community trust very quickly as we're talking through options. So our goal is always to provide individualized and judgment-free support. We'll want to employ active listening with open body language. Sometimes the problem that the person's presenting is more straightforward, and other times we really need to use our listening skills to understand what they're asking for. We'll want to resist immediately jumping into solution mode, as that can lead to people feeling unheard and cause mistrust. And I'll be the first person to admit that I'm guilty of that. You have so many of these conversations that your brain starts to take mental shortcuts as to where the conversation's going. And I have to remind myself to tap back in and be present with that person and treat them like an individual, because that's what they are. And no two situations are exactly alike. We also want to try to maintain a warm but neutral commentary and facial expression, just because we don't know how the person's feeling about the situation, and we don't want to impart our own feelings or emotions about it onto them. Using accessible language is so important. We'll really want to avoid technical language. I think in animal welfare, we're all guilty of that. Sometimes you'll be having a conversation with someone and they're just looking back at you with a completely blank stare. So we'll also want to avoid information dumping too. I think it's good to just check in, make sure that you're on the same page, and then always good practice to send the information via email or via text for them to review later, especially for people in crisis. Like, they could not be absorbing a lot of what you're saying. Lastly, we'll want to ask probing questions. We'll want to ask the person what they want to achieve or best hopes for the situation. This gives them agency and lets them know we're engaged and wanting to understand the full picture. And I'm going to get into that more on the next slide. So here are some examples of probing questions. And honestly, I think the best conversation starter, if you've never worked with somebody before and don't have any ideas to their background or why they're coming to us for support, is to just be like, introduce yourself and ask them to tell you a little bit about what's going on. From there, you can ask things like, how can I help? What brings you here today? What have you already tried? That's an important one. We don't want to go down a path that somebody is not interested in or that they've already tried. We want to be respectful of their time and of our own time. Tell me more about that. Are you considering any other options? Can you be more specific? How is this behavior impacting you or other pets in the home? Is there anything else I can do? And do you have any questions? And those last two, I think, are just great practice to end any conversation with, just to make sure you're on the same page and to leave the conversation open-ended. And then just a reminder that asking these open-ended versus yes or no questions will often yield a more detailed response and get to the information that you're looking for to be able to help that person. Some of the hardest conversations we'll have are helping pet owners navigate end of life for pets who are struggling medically or behaviorally, who do not meet our shelter intake criteria, and for whom rehoming is not a safe or ethical option. And this, unfortunately, is a part of, or not unfortunately, but it is a part of supported self-rehoming. While we can deny a home to home post, we can't ultimately stop the owner from rehoming. So it's important that we discuss all of the options with them so they don't feel like there's something they haven't tried. During the conversation, we'll want to lead with kindness and empathy, try to alleviate guilt, and encourage grace whenever possible. We'll also want to try to help set expectations around those unicorn rescue, sanctuary, or adopter situations. I think we've all had that conversation with someone thinking, like, if my dog could just find this mythical ranch in XYZ place that doesn't have any other animals and there's no other people around, they'd be so great. But anyone who's been doing this work for a while knows that those situations are so extremely rare. And I think just promoting the awareness that euthanasia can be the most compassionate option for an animal who's really struggling. Losing Lulu is a great resource for anyone who's struggling with the idea of behavioral euthanasia, or for a family who's grieving the loss of a pet due to behavioral euthanasia. And that's one that we reference and share out quite a bit. Moving on to rehoming cyberbullies. So, when we are promoting that people post on community forums like Nextdoor, we really try to set the expectation that there will always be something or someone with something unkind to say. And it's easy to judge when they're not in your situation, and to just try to remind themselves that it's not a reflection of you at all. It's totally a reflection of them. But still, it is difficult for people who are trying to do the best for their pet and, are faced with really negative comments. So I did a quick Nextdoor search, just Nextdoor in my area, to try and come up with a recent rehoming post. Sure enough, there was one from a few days ago. It was from a family who's trying to rehome their 6-month-old cattle dog, Ava. And they opened the post with, "This is one of the hardest things we ever had to do." They go on to talk about, the fact that Ava's been my second shadow. They talk about her personality, that the decision isn't because they don't love her, it's because they do, and they recognize that she needs more than they're able to give. They start to talk about her a little bit more. She's 6 months old, she's crate trained, they're working on basic commands. She'll come with her crate, leash, and harness. They're asking for a rehoming fee. They talk about her ideal home, and then they close it with talking about asking people to reach out if they're interested in adopting. So, really nice post. They also included very cute photos. I just have one little blurry snapshot down here. But honestly, this is the ideal rehoming post, right? I don't think I could have written a better rehoming post for this dog. And while there were some nice comments on the post, there were also just some really unkind and unhelpful ones. So I listed them here. Apparently not enough to work it out so that you can keep her, your shadow. Charge a fee, even if it's $50. And they already mentioned they're charging a fee. And thoroughly vet the adopter. If possible, do a home check and definitely ask for references. There are some sick people who look for free pets and do horrible things to them. Some go as far as sending a mom and child only to turn around and use them for bait or dog fighting. So once again, just perpetuating that bait dog myth. Did you research cattle dogs? I have one and you need to be prepared for their energy. Please get her spayed. And then I am amazed how you are not aware that a dog is a lifetime commitment and they do require attention and care, which I am sure you are not aware of. Give your insincere and frivolous story to someone else. I feel sorry for your dog. Just really unkind. And, I share this so that we know what we're up against and how hard we need to double down on our messaging that rehoming outside of the shelter can be the best option, but we need people to help support us in this mission. Because on the other side of this negativity are so many successes. So I clipped a few here of successes that we've had through our program, starting with this dog caterpillar, as my colleague Darla called it. They said I'd been searching for a companion for my 4-year-old Great Dane Pit Bull mix, the very anxious but lovable Hank. They came across the profile for Nita. It described a sweet senior companion who needed a loving new home. I messaged her owner. We decided to meet at the dog park. Both of our dogs fell in love. They adopted her, and now they're BFFs. Great story, especially for a dog who I think we know would be a little bit more of a challenging adoption if she was to come into the shelter. Or he, sorry. Um, the second story was about a kitty named Blueberry. I found Blueberry a fantastic home with a couple who had a Siamese cat that passed away earlier in the year, and they have kept me updated with photos and emails. She's doing so well and they love her. I had a few inquiries, but I was really screening potential adoptees and wanted to find her a perfect match. Cute Blueberry there. And then the last one was one that we posted on Facebook. It said, when a 90-year-old legally blind man was given a German Shepherd puppy as a gift, he reached out to his Meals on Wheels delivery volunteer, who also happens to volunteer at San Diego Humane Society. And she was able to upload photos, share about the puppy's personality and behavioral information, and provide background info. She heard from several interested adopters, arranged a meet and greet, and they found the perfect fit. So really great outcome there too for a dog that clearly was not a good match with the person that he was initially set up with. I'm going to close with some useful resource links, and I think I saw that one or two of these were already linked in the chat, but they're for the Haas supported self-rehoming toolkit. And then there's also a wonderful toolkit from Heart Speak about communicating about supported self-rehoming. Bad Rap has a great resource called Be a Resource, Not a Cyberbully, that goes over how to be helpful to people who are trying to rehome instead of scaring them into not rehoming on their own. There's a sample adoption agreement. I think both Home to Home and Rehome by Adopt-a-Pet offer their own adoption agreements, but it's good for people who aren't rehoming through those sites to have another option. Rescue Writer is a great tool for profile writing. If you're not already using this for your shelter or rescue, I would recommend it. And then it's great for writing the rehoming bios as well. And then lastly, a how to transfer a pet's microchip registration, because I think our lost and found team would be upset with me if I didn't include that in this talk. And that'll do it for my slides. I listed my contact information here. Email's always the best way to get in touch with me, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was really great. A lot of great resources, and I love that you're transparent about some of the challenges too that you all are seeing and that others might encounter as well. We did get some really good questions. First of all, I got quite a few that were asking if you could share some of your templates and resources, specifically for the template responses for home to home and the email template. A lot of people really like those. Would we be able to
Thanks.
share those out with the recording?
I will check, but we
Okay.
should be able to. Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, we'd be happy to help how we can. So
All right. And then next question, do you have a parameter or requirements of dogs you help owners to rehome? Examples like temperament, bite history, or other behavioral issues.
yeah, so we do try to follow the same standards as the Asilomar Accords in terms of bite history. With that said, I think there's a little bit more flexibility because we're not in a shelter setting. I think we have some hard lines, and then we can be flexible with others if we feel like there's an opportunity for that pet to be successful just in a different environment. So we mostly follow our shelter intake guidelines, which are the Asilomar Accords, but with a little bit of wiggle room, if that makes sense.
All right, thank you. The next question is about owner relinquished euthanasia.
Mhm.
So and I know that you talked about this a little bit, but if there's anything else you can add, the question is, what is your policy if people call to euthanize their dog, often for some sort of behavior, so behavior related euthanasia requests.
Yeah, so we won't euthanize a healthy or treatable animal. So if somebody brings that animal in and we're not observing the behaviors that they're discussing in the home, or they don't have any kind of evidence for those kind of behaviors, we wouldn't euthanize the dog. But if the behavior is evident and there's a documented history of the behavior, then we would move forward with behavioral euthanasia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The next question is, do you recommend that owners ask for a rehoming fee?
This is a hot topic, right? It comes up quite a bit on
Definitely.
the topic of supported self-rehoming. Personally, I don't have strong feelings either way. I think there's been plenty of research to support not asking for a rehoming fee. And then it doesn't really make a difference in the commitment that a person has to that animal. And then there's people who feel more comfortable with requesting one. So I think it's up to the discretion of the person who's rehoming. And if they find the perfect person who can adopt that animal, but who maybe can't afford the rehoming fee and would instead use that to cover supplies to care for the pet, that could be a good thing too.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And
yeah.
like you said, there's lots of research out there that shows that there's no, that what somebody's willing to pay for a pet does not indicate their ability to care for that pet.
Yeah.
All right, last one, but there's a few questions in here. So, individuals who adopt directly from an individual can receive support. Hold on. This is a long one. Okay. The question is how families or individuals who adopt directly from an individual can receive support to set them up for success.
So the question is, if somebody adopts directly from somebody else, how are we supporting them to set them up for success?
Yes.
Um, well, if they adopt through rehome or home to home, we're able to offer them free spay neuter, microchipping, and vaccinations. Um, and if they don't adopt from one of those sites, if they just go from person to person without any kind of intermediary, we're still willing and able to, and flexible to work with them on those services. And San Diego Humane Society is set up that anybody can really access our community services at any time. I think with the rehoming owners, it's just a little bit of a more concerted effort. So we try, but we do try to make our community programs accessible to everyone, and that includes our vaccination clinic, our community pet pantry, our community spay neuter. We have a community veterinary program that offers lower cost vet care, behavior and training support. So really we try and cover it from all angles, and it's just a matter of letting people know that those resources are available and accessible to them.
Awesome.
Yeah. I hope that
Uh,
answers it okay. But if
yeah.
not, feel free to reach out to me and I can explain more.
And then the next question, do you have any advice for staff who face consistent pushback from people that just want to surrender their dogs and don't seem receptive to rehoming?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I guess our capacity is a blessing and a curse because we aren't in a position to schedule owner relinquishment appointments for dogs, especially right now, just due to our overcapacity in our shelters. So we have the leverage that if they're waiting for an owner relinquishment appointment anyway, um, they could take that time to rehome, and here's how we'll do it together. With that said, you can't force people. So I think if you're presenting the options and people still aren't wanting to work with you, and the support is the other end of that too, like it's not just presenting the options, it's also offering the support, to let them know that they're not going to do it alone and taking the time to go through what it could look like for them, but they're still not open or amenable to it, then there's not so much that you can do. We're actually working on it was adapted from another shelter, but it's an intake scoring sheet that is going to help us kind of systematize our scheduling process for owner surrenders. and maybe Stacy remembers the shelter that it was adopted from, but it goes over medical concerns, behavior concerns, owner concerns, and then um, how willing they are to work on rehoming on their own. And it offers a scoring in each of those categories. And that's just to allow us to be able to better triage and intake those emergency situations and be able to push further out cases that really don't need to come to us, for healthy pets or pets who are easily rehomed outside of the shelter. So that could be something worth exploring too, just to better systematize your process for scheduling those owner surrenders.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely personally would be interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
lot. So it's good. Any system that we can have to just be more equitable to people too.
we're getting a few more questions here. Um, the next one is, how many staff do you have monitoring home to home and rehome sites?
Two,
Two.
rehome by adopt a pet, we don't monitor. That's done by rehome staff. So we just have our two staff members reviewing our home to home posts and our community support line and other programs as well to try and stop pets from coming into the shelter.
And is that their only job, or do they have other shelter duties too?
We also manage our safety net foster program. So, yeah, safety net foster, case management, and supported self rehoming are our three areas of focus.
Okay. Next one, and Michelle, I hope I get this right. So resubmit if I am not quite representing your question correctly. But do you think that if we reframe this option as a rescue option rather than rehoming, that it would be received better by the public?
Oh, like maybe there's some weight to the term rehoming that doesn't exist for so much for rescue or adoption.
I think that that's the question. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a good thought. One I hadn't previously considered. I agree that there is some weight to the phrase rehoming. There's also some ambiguity behind it, so maybe we could use that in our favor. But yeah, maybe we could take some of the positive connotation from rescue and reframe it on rehoming. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah. That's really all it
Um,
is. It's just semantics.
yeah. And where do you think that an organization should get started? Like if they're just starting something
Just
like this.
starting. I would say looking at the two main sites that we use are home to home and rehome by adopt a pet. So starting an account with them, getting them built into your website, and creating a page for owners who are needing to rehome or rescue. I don't know how we'd employ it there, but owners who are needing to rehome their pet, and then one page for people who are looking to adopt for them to go to. And then, all of our stuff, it's not like we created it overnight. This is something that we definitely took step by step. But the first step for us was getting those websites set up and then starting to promote them on our social, starting to create signage around our shelters, and that we could bring to events. And then it's just kind of grown from there. And we're always looking for new ways to promote the pages and talk about them more and make it more of a thing out in the community. So
Thank you
great.
so much, Lauren. That was really, really insightful, and it's awesome to hear what you all are doing.
Awesome. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Good day.